Hello, hello and welcome to this video on JavaScript. In this video, we will talk about switch statements, label statements, return statement because now we are dealing with functions, and finally with try catch and finally. So try catch and finally, those three are keywords. Okay. So first we deal with switch statement. Suppose you have if else if cases, okay, and assume that you have multiple else if, and the expression which you are testing these else if branches are same. For example, suppose there is a variable named n, okay, and you are testing if n is equal to 1, else if n is equal to 2, else if n is equal to 3, something like that. So you have similar comparison, then you can translate that into a switch statement, which is kind of elegant. Okay? That is the simplest way to put it. So what we have is we have switch, we test the expression against it, and then in the case statement we match the value of that expression. So if n is 1, it will execute console.log 1. It will print 1. And then we have the break. So that means only case 1 will execute. If n is 2, then only case 2 console.log will execute, and so on. And finally, we have a default branch, which is the catch all branch. The code execution, it will print n as n. The value will be printed in the templated string. I have not thought about templated string, but please hold your horses, and we will have that. So if we run this, it will print n is 5. Now let's see if we put n is equal to 1. You see, it prints 1. Now what happens if we remove this break? What will happen is that it is called a fall through. Now n is 1, it will evaluate that n is 1, so case 1 will execute. Now after this condition will not be checked. Case 2 will not be checked, and it should print 2 also, 1 and 2. Let's see. Okay, so sorry, not 1 and 2, but 1 and 1. It will print twice because n is 1. So it is called fall through. Okay. So if we don't have this break statement, then it will also execute case 3 and it will print 1 3 times. So it can be quite useful depending on the situation. Okay. Now what if we break from here? Okay. What will happen? Let's see. It prints 1. It's the last statement. There is no further fall through after that. Okay, that is about switch statement. Now one thing you should take care is that whatever you write in case, it should not cause side effects, because if I write something like this, it will be problematic. Let's see. So it printed 2. See, it is 1, it printed 2. Now the question is, did it print the case 2's console log or did it print case 1's console log? So definitely it printed this one, you see. Yeah. So try not to modify the function values in the case statement. Okay. Another example we can take of switch statement is, okay, we make this commented and we bring this into picture. Suppose we have a function convert, and switch checks the type of the argument. Convert receives an argument. If the argument type of is number, what we do is we take 16 and we translate it to a string. That is, x value is translated to hexadecimal string. Okay, this is the base. Okay, and if the type of x is a string, then we return a double quoted version. And by default, we invoke string on that. Okay. So toString function will be invoked. So now we run this and it prints a, which is the hexadecimal value of 10. What if we say, let's put hello? Okay. and we'll see it gives us double quoted version of the string. What if it's neither a number nor a string? It could be an array. Okay, 1 comma 2. So it will simply give us the string form of 1 comma 2. Okay, so what if we want base 2? Can we get base 2? So variance M10, all right, and we get the binary of 10. What about base 3? Okay, so don't be afraid of playing with the values. We have got 101, so yeah, it can do base 3 as well. So that's about switch statement. All right. Now we look at something called label statement. So what you can do is, suppose you have a loop, for loop or while loop or do while loop, does not matter. What you can do is you can give a label to it. Now this label should be a valid JavaScript identifier. By valid JavaScript identifier, we mean that alphanumeric strings, that is small alphabets, capital alphabets, and 0 to 9, and underscore. Okay, the identifier or the loop name or label rather should not begin with number. Okay, these are the restrictions, and then you can use these labels as along with continue and break, and when those statements will be executed, they will jump to the loop. Okay, loop label rather, and you can't put this label at arbitrary positions. It is only allowed to put at beginning of loop. For example, I'll show you. Okay, so consider this loop which counts from 1 to 10, and when I is equal to 7, we hit the loop continue. That is, this console.log will not be executed, break won't be executed. If I is equal to 8, we break the loop, and this console.log will not be printed. So let's run this. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 was not executed, and on 8, break was encountered. But if you look at its base, this is not going to change anything in our execution. Okay, this loop is kind of unnecessary over here. Now let's undo that, and let's see if we can put this loop anywhere else. Okay, let's try to put this loop at here. We put here, and we don't have convert anymore, so we do that. If you do that, the language server will tell you statement can only jump to a level of an enclosing iteration, so you can't put it anywhere. So in this example, it is not very useful because it behaves in the same way. So we need to take another example. Okay, so suppose you have two nested loops, for loops. So one is for variable I, another for j, 1 to 10. And we are logging 1 to I and j here. That is the loop index we are printing. Now we want to break from the inner loop to the outer loop. So if we say I is equal to 5 and j is equal to 2, we want to break. Now usually if you don't give this condition, okay, it will break the inner loop. But if you give the label on the outer loop and you want to break, outer loop will be broken. So first we see this labeled one, and then we will see the other one. So you see, after 5 2, no further statements were executed. See, okay. So now we don't want to do this. We want to break it. So only for 5 2, the inner loop will be broken. Okay. So it will continue with 6 and 1. So I'll have to show you by scrolling. Okay, here. So you see here after 5 2, the inner loop was broken, and then we have 6 1. Okay, so it is very useful when you want to break nested loops, although you shouldn't ever nest more than 3 levels. For matrix multiplication, which is the typical case, should not have more than 3 levels of loops, simply because the time complexity is exponential. For 2 loops it is n square, for 3 loops it is n cube, for 4 loops n to the power 4. So nested loop if you have declawables, it is a code smell. It is basically in almost all certainties wrong code. If else if can be nested quite a lot, uh, 3, 4, 5. Okay, loops you must not rather. So that is the level statement. Now we will talk about return statement. Okay, we don't have an example. So what a return statement is, suppose a function f is there and we have some code, and finally we say that return 10. Okay, so this function will send a value 10 to the caller. So we have seen a lot of examples of functions. So we say console.log and f. So you know the output, it will print 10. Now, whatever code you write after return statement, that will not execute. Code will not execute after that. Okay. If you don't return anything, it will return undefined. So that's all about return statements of functions. Okay. There is not much to it. Now we will talk about throw, catch, and finally. A throw statement, a throw statement throws an exception, okay, and catch catches that. So here we have factorial, which computes the factorial, and if you send a negative number, then it throws an exception. So that exception is an error, and x must not be negative. When JavaScript interpreter will encounter a throw statement, it will suspend everything, okay, and take you to the catch, whatever is catching that. Okay, usually the function callers catch the exceptions. Okay, if the exception is not caught, the program will be immediately terminated. For example, let's say console.log. Here we print 10. Okay, and we comment this out. We don't have a catch for this. Okay, and we call function factorial. In C++, at least it terminates. So we'll see if this terminates that. So what the point I'm making is that -4 we have called. It is a negative value. It will show an error. There is nothing to catch it. So this statement should not execute. Let's see. See, x must not be negative. That is the error message we got. And then the console log did not print it. Okay. So whenever you have an exception, make sure to catch it. Otherwise, your program will terminate. Okay. So we have the console log factorial mass 5. So it will show an error. Now, whatever the result of that error is there, we can log that. It typically involves a stack trace, which you can see here. It is called a stack trace. Okay. We don't have functions. Otherwise, there would have been more functions than this. And finally, we'll always execute. Okay. So there's few things to observe here. If catch or this try block has some return or break or continue kind of jump statements, and it finally encounters that, then finally call will execute before executing those statements. Suppose you say here a return value, okay, something you want to return. Then finally code block will execute before returning. Okay. Usually it runs after the catch. So try will execute first, catch will execute second, and finally will third. But catch may be missing. It is not necessary to have catch. After try, you can have finally. That will work out. Okay. And similarly, you don't need finally all the time. Try and catch will work. In fact, try will also work all the time. Okay. But ideally, you should have a catch. And if you want to do something extra, then you say that you do that in finally. Okay. So those are the possible combinations of try, catch, and finally. So the general idea is that exceptions should be thrown in exceptional cases. Okay. And for example, you want to read a config file and you don't have permissions, and you are starting the program which depends on that configuration and you don't have permission. Should you throw an exception or should you throw an error? Okay. There are two schools of thought on this. One says that you send an error and terminate the program. The second will say you throw an exception, catch it, and terminate the program. Both are quite valid. Personally, I wouldn't throw an exception in this particular case. Okay, exception I would use where I can continue execution after receiving the exception. If I can't continue the program logic after the exception has occurred, I would rather throw an error and terminate the program. So throw is the keyword, try is the keyword, as you can see from the color. So be very careful, and you can create your own custom classes by inheriting this error class. It is not necessary to use the built-in error. So we will learn about this once we have dealt with classes. So with that, I will end this video here. This was some of the missing content of particularly switch and labeled statements, or rather labels. I deliberately did not touch these because and throw and catch I wanted to hold on to till we reach functions, and of course return statement doesn't make sense when you have not discussed functions. So quickly, if you want to see this, whether it can compute factorial of 5 or not, you have got 120 and you see the finally block still executes and catch was not executed. So with this, I'll end this video here. I hope that you have found this video useful and informative, which I say in all the videos. And if you have any questions, comments, and other things to say, make use of the comment box. Also, I would like to do some advertisement. So this is my question answer website, kunjika.astavak.org. If you have questions, you can come ahead and use the tag JavaScript to ask JavaScript questions. More tags will be created here, but for now you can use JavaScript tag to ask the questions, and I'll be happy to answer all the questions which you have. That is, if I know. If I don't know, then I'll look up and try my best to answer your questions. So thanks a lot for watching the video, and we will meet again after 4 days with another video on JavaScript, where we will continue our studies of function. So till then, sayonara and enjoy.